Hello, I'm Susan Adams, Associate Director of Teaching and Learning at Achieving the Dream. It was a great honor to speak at the Sia Pumalela Teaching and Learning Conference, organized by the South African Institute for Distance Education in Johannesburg, South Africa. And once again, I'd like to offer a big thank you to the Kresge Foundation, who sponsored the event, which brought together educational leaders from across the country. My presentation is about uniting tradition and technology and thinking through what humanistic AI can look like in the Global South. I want to begin with a reflection, reflecting on a journey not just of miles, but of experiences and learnings that stretch back to the roots laid down by my family. My mother was born in Scotland, but spent time as a young child in South Africa's neighboring country of Botswana, where my grandfather established a farm. She then ventured to South Africa for her education at St. John's School for Girls in Pietermaritzburg. This connection brought me closer to this land through her stories. In my mid-20s, I traveled to South Africa myself as an orientation leader for U.S. students who were embarking on their study abroad year. I took them to the universities and explored the garden route. One of my favorite towns was Cape Town, watching the mountains greet the sea. These experiences shaped my understanding and appreciation of South Africa's unique cultural landscapes, and it also resonated deeply with the themes we are to explore. So as we delve into discussions of responsible use of AI, let us draw upon the diverse and rich heritage that South Africa offers. It's a reminder of the importance of grounding our technological advances in the context of human history and culture. In my current role at Achieving the Dream, I'm proud to be part of an organization that has nurtured a decade-long partnership with SADE. So this collaboration has been a fertile ground for shared growth and learning aimed at reforming our educational systems for the betterment of all. So it embodies our shared commitment to ensuring that educational reform goes hand in hand with technological progress. So let's really begin. As we stand at this intersection of technology and humanity, we are once again at a crossroads presented by the advent of artificial intelligence. Generative AI holds a promise of democratizing knowledge and fostering an inclusive tapestry of global and local wisdom. But as history teaches us, technology alone cannot fulfill these promises without the human touch. So today I'm going to invite you to explore with me not just the capabilities of AI, but how, when combined with our collective human efforts, it can enrich our understanding and embrace a plurality of knowledge. So this is crucial, especially here in South Africa, in the Global South, where the echoes of the past remind us of the need for a holistic and inclusive approach to knowledge structures. So in our roles as educators, we are striving not to perpetuate polarizing debates, but to provide unifying principles that elevate our students and our communities. So the emergence of AI presents a unique opportunity and a responsibility. We truly can harmonize AI with our human values and our virtues. And really that means that you belong in AI. Historically, the framing of knowledge has predominantly elevated white male Eurocentric perspectives. This is a reality that the dawn of AI amplifies. Generative AI also inherently offers us the power to reshape the process of knowledge production and promote the plurality I'm speaking of. So what does this mean? It means valuing and integrating multiple systems of knowledge. That means your knowledge, your expertise, and more importantly, indigenous knowledge systems, Afrocentric perspectives, community and local insights, as well as spiritual, religious, artistic, and creative wisdom. And that can happen right now with you simply experimenting with generative AI. So let's dig in with the three guiding principles for the ethical and safe use of AI. The purpose of AI is to augment human intelligence, not replace it. Really grounding ourselves in that principle is going to be key in how we engage with it and how we guide our students to engage with it. Data and insights belong to their creator, and AI systems must be transparent and explainable. So if the purpose of AI is to augment human intelligence and not replace it, then unequivocally, you belong in AI. So in this new era where vast expanses of information necessitates the use of algorithms to curate it for us, we must recommit to human flourishing. So my goal today is to illustrate why each of you is vital to AI's responsible development and its ethical deployment. So how many of you are familiar with the diversity prediction theorem? It's also known as the wisdom of the crowds. So this theorem demonstrates that collective diversity often leads to more accurate outcomes. So for instance, imagine we gather a large group from this audience to estimate the number of jelly beans in a jar. If I leverage all your guesses, I'd likely get a number very close to the actual count with minimal error. This illustrates an important point. The greater the diversity, the more accurate the predictions. Yet, what do we truly mean by diversity? Often it's mistaken for mere quantity, when in fact, quality of perspective is what's crucial. This is a common issue in AI where vast data pools on the internet are assumed to be diverse, but may actually represent a narrow slice of human experience. I think we all can guesstimate that. Much of human experience isn't captured online, and when we confuse quantity of data for quality, we lose that precision. So instead of relying on the opinions of 200 conference attendees, perhaps we could select 10 individuals of significant diversity. Their collective insights would likely offer a more precise understanding rather than large, less varied groups. So we need to diversify to have accuracy. And how do we do that with AI? To harness its full potential, we need to engage, experiment, interrogate, and contribute, ensuring that AI is truly representative and equitable. So this means we need to create places where people can engage in the complexity of AI, and this place needs to be wide enough for diversity that generates empathy, so we can see each other, understand each other, and deep enough for a rich human experience to be shared. So what better place for this than the classroom? So we're entering an era where digital deepfakes will erode trust. So we need to learn how to verify and how to validate. We need to practice our language arts, help our students find their voices, and exercise their muscles, right? Their executive function. This will need to happen in tandem with the experimentation of the machine because it's going to learn us as well as we learn it. So I encourage each of you to actively participate in AI initiatives. Your unique perspectives are essential in making AI a tool that truly augments human intelligence across all sectors of society. You don't just belong in AI, you are essential to ensuring it serves everyone fairly. Our approach must be multidisciplinary, encompassing engineering for technical expertise, ethics for safety, and psychology to understand and promote human interaction with technology. Embracing a growth mindset is also vital, and learning is always possible with persistence. We must measure what matters, incentivize the behaviors we want to encourage, and foster independent thinking, which is the best form of regulation. We need to foster an environment where the public understands these principles. AI isn't something being done to us. We have the agency and the choice to shape its influence. This means we need to advocate for generative AI to not be places of commerce where free means in exchange for all of your personal data, but a place where liberty is experienced. So this quote from a book I've read recently called from Kester Bruin, A 500-Year History of Artificial Intelligence in Myths, Machines, and Monsters. He suggests that AI not just be a place where we become more knowledgeable, but where we become more known. This was a very powerful kind of shift in framing as we begin to think about how this machine works and how it learns us. So we must not forget then that data is a human artifact. It's shaped by our experiences and is deeply personal. So we need to be clear on what trains our models because data begins and ends with us. So as we delve into the semantics and the language of conversational AI, remember, language is more than a tool. It conveys our culture and our identity, echoing our community and societal values. In a recent blog post on OER Africa's new website titled Delving Deep, African Academic Librarians and Artificial Intelligence, we're reminded that librarians, who have long been champions of information literacy, can continue to be our gatekeepers of knowledge. Their expertise, adaptability, and commitment to equity and inclusion position them as leaders for us in this new AI era. So the African Library and Information Associations and institutions, along with OER Africa, are advocating for promoting open data sets that give access to diverse cultural context and learning modes. So this can ensure that African knowledge is more available and representative in AI training models. So this tactically is kind of it's an arduous work, right? It's an arduous task of curating and prioritizing underrepresented data sources, but it needs to be done collaboratively. with representation from behavioral scientists, researchers, students, and ethicists thinking together along with industry partners. And what better place for this all to happen but at a university and college and right there in the classroom? By urgently asking you to experiment with AI in order to learn it and shape it means there needs to be an earning of your trust. And I like to think of trust that needs to be social and technological. So technologically, we must address how algorithms make crucial decisions and ensure these processes are clear to the public. But we also need to understand that life online has given us access to social structures, but at the cost of eroding many times our physical interconnectedness. This is why we need classroom spaces where bonds can be made and bonds can be broken, where healthy debate, discussion, transparency, forgiveness, generosity, really our true humanness needs to be experienced. And this can be a method of trust, right? So without it, right, individualization is going to prevail, making us vulnerable to corporations who give liberty in exchange for algorithmically powered, personalized content. We've all experienced this. So we must advocate for ongoing oversight, transparent audits, and stronger regulatory frameworks alongside building our networks and learning experiences that connect us to our humanness. So here's some safeguards, right? Many of you may already know this. This is not an exhaustive list, but please stay informed, use privacy settings, where possible, opt for privacy-enhanced tools, give informed consent, and advocate for transparency, both in the technological companies, but also inside of our university systems. So now I want to turn towards the promise, which is that AI has the possibility and the technology to be hyper-personalized. And I want to demonstrate this with a story. Let me tell you the story of Tondi. Tondi is a first-year student at a leading South African university. She arrives on campus eager to dive into her studies in environmental science. Her excitement is paired with a touch of anxiety about navigating her new academic and social environment. The university recently implemented an AI-driven hyper-personalization system designed to enhance her experience. During her first semester, Tondi struggles with statistics, a required course. The AI system notices her challenges and adjusts her learning materials to include more visual aids and interactive data analysis tools. This helps her grasp the complex concepts. But it also schedules additional review sessions with a tutor who specializes in teaching methods suited to visual learners, like Tondi. Tondi explores various environmental projects, and the AI system analyzes her academic strengths and growing interest in marine conservation. It suggests she attend a seminar hosted by a renowned marine biologist visiting the campus. The AI also recommends a summer internship at a local marine conservation NGO, aligning perfectly with her career aspirations. Midway through the semester, Tondi feels overwhelmed by her coursework and extracurricular activities. The AI detects signs of stress based on her decreased participation and erratic study patterns. It suggests she join a yoga class at the campus wellness center and books an appointment with a counselor to discuss stress management, significantly easing her anxiety. Tondi is passionate about environmental issues, but initially shy. She finds it hard to make connections. The AI introduces her to the Environmental Club and a new sustainability initiative on campus. Through these recommendations, she meets like-minded peers, and soon, Tondi finds herself actively participating in community cleanup drives and advocacy meetings. As course registration for the next semester approaches, the AI helps Tondi by pre-selecting courses that fit her environmental science major and her preferred learning times. It reminds her of key registration dates and deadlines, ensuring she enrolls in a popular fieldwork course that aligns with her interests and fills up quickly each year. By the end of her first year, Tondi not only excels academically, but also feels deeply connected to her campus community, largely thanks to the tailored support from her AI. Her initial anxieties have transformed into confidence and enthusiasm for her future and in environmental science. Is this plausible? Is this what our future is going to look like? How might AI-driven interventions transform the student affairs landscape? What could this mean for student engagement, retention, and success? So what would be the practical implementation of an AI system like this? It's going to require a campus to develop robust technological ecosystems. They'll need robust data infrastructures to securely integrate diverse data sources. They'll need to support tailored AI solutions that align with educational goals. And with initial setup costs will be high, but they're expected to decrease as the technology advances and becomes more accessible. But the exciting news is the technology is here now. So let's start dreaming big. Ethical considerations and transparent communication are crucial for the trust and compliance, and plans for scalability and sustainability will need to be in place from the get-go. So here are a few US colleges that are showing signs of moving in this direction. Georgia State University has been a leader in using AI for predictive analytics and personalized advising. Arizona State has an AI-powered math tutoring system that's getting better and better. And Stanford Medical School is using AI to create personalized learning experiences for all their medical students. We're also seeing in Australia that Deakin University has developed a digital assistant that helps with students' study schedules, managing those, and also answering questions about campus services, including financial aid. So these are some places to watch, more on the way. So now I want to shift a little bit to the perils that we're dealing with in the immediate, and that is cheating. And Ethan Mollick, who's a business professor at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, calls it the homework apocalypse. This word is a bit alarming, but I think it's going to help us dig deep into how we can manage and mitigate for this. Clearly, AI is now able to do homework assignments that almost every homework assignment possible. For example, GPT-4 has been shown to surpass medical students at Stanford in diagnostic accuracy, and a study from the University of Minnesota revealed that AI could draft legal contracts more proficient than senior law students. So this is a problem because homework has always been a foundational component of education, based on the idea that assigning work and having students complete it reinforces learning. But cheating has been a persistent issue in classrooms. And now with the advent of universal AI tools, even students who aren't intentionally cheating are finding help readily available. So this underscores why deep expertise and a strong grasp of foundational knowledge are more important than ever. So education must adapt to ensure students are equipped to navigate and contribute, which means they need that foundational knowledge. AI excels as a high-end consultant or a programmer, performing impressively in those kinds of roles. It still doesn't match, though, the proficiency that most people achieve in the fields that they're passionate about and that they excel in. So the key to surpassing AI in these areas lies in developing deep expertise and a process that's going to involve a committed and continuous effort to build mastery and productive struggle. So our classrooms are going to need to center that. This need for expertise is vital, and it's the vital role of traditional classrooms, where the focus is on cultivating that deep knowledge. And in the long run, schools are going to be poised to benefit greatly from AI. So here's two approaches for how to deal with this. We can return to basics, thinking back to the calculator, right? That emerged in the 1970s. It caused a significant upheaval in schools initially. There was chaos. Educators grappled with whether to allow its use, concerns about affordability, and questions about democratizing access. Sound familiar? Over time, attitudes shifted dramatically. What began with some parents and teachers opposing calculators in class transitioned to them demanding that those tools be incorporated. So this led to teaching approaches where certain tasks were done by hand to ensure understanding, that foundational knowledge, while calculators were used to explore more advanced topics. So the return to basics, where teaching continues to become more interactive, supports the pedagogical research methods like low-stakes testing that enhance memory, retention, and deepen understanding. Now, a transformative approach can mean faculty use AI to support their course design tasks, including brainstorming activities and assignments, and creating personalized assignments for different students. It can help shift faculty from lecture-based methods to dynamic and interactive instructions. So what can it look like? I'm going to show you a portion of a live demonstration given by Ethan Mollick at the ASU GSV Summit.
Try and show you some of this here. There's nothing better than live demoing, and especially live demoing ChatGPT, because it breaks on a regular basis. But we'll find out whether it works here for us. So I want to show you an example of this. And all of this, by the way, we share all of these prompts. So if you want to play with any of these, you should. And hopefully we can have my screen up here. Okay, great. So hopefully you'll be able to see. So I'm going to start with, let's just try an exercise. This is a simulator, the one you see, that you saw on screen before, which is about practicing negotiation. So I can just say here, help me practice a negotiation. And then what we know, and I've been building simulators for 10 years, is that you need to customize this for the student, right? So at first, the AI is actually going to ask you, what's your experience level in negotiation? I could say, I am an undergraduate, I'm just making this up as we go along, art student who has no real experience. Okay, and just hit enter, and hopefully we'll see if the AI actually works for us today. And so we're having a whole, I'll show you again the whole prompt. This is all in prose here. It's now giving us 3 choices of scenarios we can run, right? So an art gallery purchase, notice how it's customizing for us. Build a customized instruction has always been a really hard, difficult process. It just does this stuff, right, out of the bat. So someone give me a number. What scenario do you want to try? 2, okay, I heard 2 first. So let's just do 2. Okay, and it's going to give us all the details of the scenario, right? I don't have to write out. It's going to tell us what our role is. It's going to tell us the basics and the details of this particular experience, what our objective is, and then it's going to, as we go along, give us feedback and information, and then ultimately grade us at the end of this whole process. And this is literally just a few paragraphs of text pasted into ChatGPT. There's no fanciness about this. There's no outside API or other system. This is something any of you could paste in and have working for a student this way, right? Which I think is a very powerful transformation for how things work. And so you'll see it starts to tell us a story here. It's a nice little bit on the story too. You're meeting the cafe owner at their establishment, a cozy place with a vibrant atmosphere, and it's quoting to us, and we can go back and forth in negotiation, and we'll get feedback at the end in this kind of way. Pretty incredible, right? And how do I respond to start the negotiation on a strong note? You know, I'll just say, give me the art now. Okay, and right, and now it's going to give us some feedback here. But interesting, right now, I do negotiation simulations, so I know what's right and wrong about this. But think of this, as a teacher, one of the things I could be doing is evaluating the tone of this and saying, is this heading in the right direction or not, right? And it's going to give us slightly different answers every time, and it's trying to help me because I seem desperate. But the idea here is, beyond that, right, I can also do, let's go back to our GPT list here. So, but I can go further than that, right? I don't have to just do, let me see if I can find it here. We have lots of GPTs we're building. Again, we share all this. So this one actually will help you create a prompt like that negotiation simulator. So I don't have to just give you this. I can actually give you tools that anyone can create that will help you create stuff. So let's say we want to learn about negotiation. And this is for a teacher to use. It's designing this is a tutor, actually. It's not the simulator, but it's fine either way. And there's 2 concepts in negotiation we'll cover. We'll cover BATNA, and we'll cover ZOPA. So BATNA is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. ZOPA is your zone of possible agreement. Notice it understands the concepts and what they are. If they didn't, again, as a teacher, as an expert, I would be looking at the AI and saying, oh no, it doesn't understand this well. And I would be correcting it and thinking about that, right? And what do they confuse it? They confuse this with best offer, which is a different idea. And so now it's going to say, that's a good point, and it's going to tell me how brilliant I am, which is nice. It's very supportive. If no one else likes you, the AI will. I don't know. You figure it out. It will take us through a bunch of questions, but you can see, I just want to show you how this works here. And now what it's going to do is it's going to actually create a prompt for us that I can then paste in and anyone can use, right? So it's not about demoing an ed tech product to you. It's demoing the idea that you can now roll your own ed tech and you can create a tool that you can share with other people. You create a tool that creates tools and share that with other people. And there's all sorts of exercises, and I could just copy this code and paste it in, and that would turn the AI, if I can remember how to do this, and that would turn the AI into an AI tutor. Is it the tutor you want to use? I don't know. You'll have to experiment with it and figure out what it's good or bad at. I can't answer that question for you. You are the subject matter experts. And the more we democratize out the use of these tools, the better off we are. And there's many other kinds of tools we could do. For example,
it's so exciting to see what Ethan Mollick can do. I'm delighted to have this experiment for all of you to have this power, right? So that we have the possibility now to make what we need and to be in a space where we do not have to be beholden to our ed tech companies, right? We're able to.
Let's just pull up one more.
Sorry, I'm pulling up that video there, just making sure. Getting to the next thing. So we have this agency, right? So I'm agreeing with Ethan. This is the most exciting aspect of the AI era, that we get to have the power to create what we want and what we need. And there's a doorway into the most powerful knowledge structures you can possibly imagine. So many see AI as something being done to them, but we have the power to shape it ourselves. We can innovate right here, right now. And so my excitement and my question to you is, what will you create? How will you validate its impact? And where will you share it? Right? The more we create these things and experiment and learn the edges of what works and what doesn't work, the better we're off to transforming our educational systems that desperately need it. And we want to share that with each other. So creating communities of practice, offering insights and support to our colleagues. And we also need to have a new skill, adaptability. There's cognitive intelligence, emotional intelligence, and I'm going to suggest adaptability as an AQ that we need to begin to develop in our students and also in ourselves. I want to amplify my colleague and friend Angela Gunder, the CEO of Open Cultured. She invites us to envision AI not merely as a tool, but as an active participant in learning, a collaborator that creates content, offers feedback, and evolves alongside us, mirroring our human learning, just what Ethan demonstrated in the negotiation ChatGPT that he built. So what possibilities can emerge when AI is seen as a co-learner? How can this perspective enhance engagement in your classrooms and institutions and better prepare our learners for an AI-integrated future of work? Because student identity is continually molded through interactions with digital and with online. So the co-creation of knowledge now transcends the boundaries between humans and technology with this relational generative AI. So we must delve into the agency and responsibility inherent in these blurred boundaries and consider the ethical aspects of assessment. So this means teaching must be re-envisioned as a process of co-constructing meaning, placing learner choice and agency at the forefront. Let's look at an example of where AI collaborates with students supporting real-world solutions in their community. At the Youth Made Festival, a celebration of global youth innovation, students from New Delhi designed an AI sensor boat to monitor water quality. And this was a critical solution tailored to their local environment. Annie Kumar, the teacher who designed the assignment, structured her approach to centering AI in the students' projects by having them go through a couple of steps. They got to learn about AI, so they were trained in the basics. They then identified a specific problem, water quality, and then they got data sets collected, so relevant data in order to train an AI model. Students researched and selected an appropriate AI model for the problem, then trained the model using their collected data. And then they trained it to deploy and to address and identify the community issue. They tested it and through many iterations and refined the solution. This sparked other projects ranging from accessibility for the disabled, trafficking, drowsy driving, COVID-19, and more. So this is where authentic assessments can really be scalable with the use of AI to support this instructor coming up with these steps and the students diving right in. In the US, we're also seeing colleges partner with industry. So Intel has established an AI incubator network with the American Association of Community Colleges. This has produced two emerging programs. Miami-Dade is training for AI specialist positions and offers a summer camp for high school students to get exposure to AI fields. And that's through Intel's AI for the Future Workforce program. Ocean County College is getting support and has developed an associate's degree in artificial intelligence as well as a Bachelor of Science. And we're going to see many, many more. So what are the ethical implications of these examples and these trends? We've talked about agency and accountability. So who is responsible for learning outcomes and decisions when they're using AI-assisted learning? What about data privacy and security? It's going to require us to have require us to demand strict safeguards to protect student privacy and data security. And we also need to understand that we need to continually monitor and correct the data sets and to prevent AI from perpetuating or introducing bias. It's already happening, but the more we can be aware of it and have those conversations in our classrooms, the more we can mitigate for it. AI risks benefiting only well-resourced institutions, potentially widening educational disparities. So these are issues we're going to need to address. We don't have them solved yet, but with careful consideration, constant evaluation, and collaboration between technologists, educators, and policymakers, I believe we can get there. So like master trackers, we must continually monitor AI's trajectories, discerning which paths could lead to societal harm and which offer generative equalizing opportunities in alignment with who we are. So there's no absolute experts who can prescribe the optimal use of AI in education. We are the experts. This is an opportunity for us to actively participate in shaping its role in our society. Because there's a huge temptation to abdicate our human creativity to this generative machine. Maintaining our practices of meaningful labor is therefore going to be critical, as well as artistic creation. AI can actually support us because it is human-made, and it exemplifies what we need to do. We must recognize that we are more effective when we are networked. So no matter our individual intelligence, when we connect, our collective intelligence and resilience are greatly enhanced. AI, for all its potential, is no substitute for the essential human qualities of empathy, creativity, critical thinking, and relationship building. They are the hallmarks of effective education. So these attributes define holistic learning and cannot be mimicked by algorithms. So this is an immense multi-generational undertaking, but it's also a solemn duty, befitting of South Africa's long historical struggle against the injustice of apartheid. The decades-long resistance against apartheid, discriminatory regime, led by Nelson Mandela, and also upheld through the sacrifices of countless activists, gave birth to a vision of justice and national rebirth. So overcoming systemic injustice required a heroic, multi-general effort to embed new governing philosophies and principles into rights-respecting nations. So if we accept this responsibility, AI can become a catalyst for realizing the Rainbow Nation's ideals, harnessing humanity's creativity for a united world where everyone has the opportunity to embrace their full identity. You, here in South Africa, have absolutely led the way and modeled for this to happen. So we can roll up our sleeves and continue to do the work to make this become realized. Thank you.